All right, so welcome back to none other than another podcast from I Lost My Podcast. I am none other than your host, one of your hosts, Joshua Gray, the fat fitness model, Jose Cortez, Husky Hefe. Call me everything, just make sure it's a good name. And we are here today with who?
I am Mechi G, your other podcast host, but I'm in the interviewee seat.
So we wouldn't want to call it a hot seat, but you are in the interview seat today
Hmm.
because today on this episode we will be interviewing my co-host Mechi G, and we're we're talking about losing another person who was, I guess, vital to your life.
Hmm.
And who was that person?
That was my best friend since high school, Chitika Fleming.
Chitika Fleming. And just a little background on you guys. How did you all meet, become friends? Just give us a story of.
Um, Me and Chitika met. We went to the same high school, and we went out for the cheerleading team. Well, it was my first year doing varsity, and she was a grade above me. So we just kind of met at tryouts and we just stuck together. Like everybody else was already on the varsity team and they knew each other, and we were like, we don't know nobody, so we just gonna stick together. Us and my friend Lydia, all three of us became a clique, and we've been tight ever since. We were tight ever since.
I know meeting friends is weird, or different, or
Mm-hmm.
it's a new experience. Was it like, I guess, was it a friendship at first sight? Like, did y'all immediately hang out, or was it over time y'all got closer and closer?
I think Shatika just had such a personality that like she never met a stranger, and I'm quiet. I've always been kind of quiet, but if you talk to me, like I have a little personality myself, so it just kind of was like we hit it off the first time we like met each other and like cracking jokes and stuff, but we didn't hang out immediately. We just knew like, oh, that's the other girl from the cheerleading team, and then once we made the team, we were around each other more. That's when we kind of built a bond.
Okay. So was she one of those friends that came around the family a lot? Was she
Well,
more?
not come around the family. We would. She was basically like an adopted daughter because my parents would like pick her up from the game or pick her up to go to the game, or she would ride home with us from cheerleading practice. So my mom knew her, even though they would joke with her and call her Topeka because they could never say her name right. But she was like a adopted daughter, pretty much.
Who called her Topeka? I bet you it was your mom.
It was my mom. She yeah.
It's something
She never
about your
has
mama and
words.
names.
Yeah, she
It
don't.
just was.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, so I guess how would you say her family life was? Did you experience any of that or see?
I won't speak too deep because I don't know. I don't want to touch that aspect of it. But I know that when she was with our family, I know she loved it. We treated her like she was one of us, and she treated us like
Was
vice
it
versa.
many spend the nights? Did y'all spend the nights
I
or?
don't think she spent the night. It was more so just on the game basis, like if
Okay.
if she needed to come home from practice or something like that.
What about mall buddies? Like, did y'all go
We
to the
did go to
mall
the
or
mall a couple
skating
times.
rink? I know in Nashville, skating rink is a big thing. Did y'all go to the skating rink together? Or anything?
Maybe once or twice. Once or twice, yeah. Our friendship was more so, ironically, it was more so on the phone, even though I don't like the phone. But we would more so pick up the phone and call each other, crack jokes, or prank phone call people she would talk to, or whatever. We were just like on the phone, just having the best time.
Now you say you don't like the phone, right?
Mm-mm.
Now was that back in the day? Could you still say the same thing, or is that more because of now you're more prone to text message and get
Yeah,
your point across, a love across to a loved one? Be honest.
I think back in the day I was better. I've never liked talking on the phone for whatever reason or texting, but I didn't think about it more. More back then it was more like, oh, they're calling, or at least Shatika's calling. Like, okay, I'll pick up the phone, and I knew like it was gonna be laughter and fun. So
Why didn't you? I mean, I just want. Why didn't you like talking on the phone? What was so bad about it?
I don't know. So in doing shadow work, I've tried to dig into why I don't. The only thing I could think of, we were late bloomers with like cell phones. My brother didn't get a cell phone till his senior year. I didn't get one till like my freshman year, a cell phone. But before that, like we had a house phone, and like my brother had girls or whoever call, he would have to talk on the house phone, and so I would be one of the ones like on the other line, like what you talking about, what they talking about, or like eavesdropping on my parents' conversation, like what they talking about, what they talking about, like just on the other end. So in doing shadow work, when I try to figure it out, I'm like, I wonder, do I not like talking on the phone subconsciously because I feel like somebody's on the other end? I really don't know. But for whatever reason, I think it's part of it is social anxiety. What I know now is social anxiety, and just that. Oh, I don't know if I can carry on the conversation, or I overthink the conversation of being on the phone instead of like you just spending time talking to somebody you love. I think that got to me, and also like if somebody on that, just that subconscious of like somebody's on the other line, possibly listening to like a privacy thing, if that makes sense.
Gotcha.
I don't know.
So how often would you say, I guess, compared to high school, and I guess you was kind of freshly out of college, how often were y'all talking compared to back in the day versus then?
In latter years, we didn't talk as much just because life took us in different directions. When I was in college, well, when I was in high school, my senior year, she went away to college, and we still kept in touch, just not as like every day like we were.
She was a year older.
Yeah, she's a year older than me.
What college did she go to?
I think she went. It's not a college anymore, but it was Lambeth.
Okay,
Lambeth
I know what
University.
you're talking about. Lambeth.
But she went there, and even when I went away to Austin P, we kind of kept in touch. She was supposed to visit. I was supposed to vice versa before that school shut down. But it's just like life happens. Schedules just.
Did y'all see each other? I mean, not often. I know not often, but did y'all see each other? Even when you seen her, if you did, rarely. Was it still genuine? I guess like love and affection, just like hey.
Yeah, it was more so like we had never like we went maybe a year or two, one of those years of being in college, and just in other directions. And every time we talked, it was like we picked back up. Like, how's this going? How's the family? How's sister, brother? She asked the same. How's my brother and mom and pops and everything? And it was like we never left off. Like it was always genuine love.
So, what year did you lose Chitika or she transitioned?
I want to say, don't quote me, but I believe it was 2016, the year we got married. Because I remember, mom was living, I remember that I told her about our engagement because her son's birthday is around the time of our anniversary. So I remember I told her I couldn't make it, and then I told her about the proposal and all that, and she was excited for the wedding. So it had to have been that February of 2016.
So 2016ish. So how was she how would you, how would you describe her character, her as a person?
She was very bubbly. She was just full of joy. Like, she always had me laughing, cracking jokes, picking with people, and she just had a personality. I don't know, she just, when she walked in the room, she really lit up. Like, she made sure you were having a good day. She was just an amazing person. To this day, I can hear her laugh because she would just giggle and I would be giggling, and it was a good time every time we were together.
Well, one of the funniest memories, what you got?
One of the funniest memories, probably us prank phone calling in high school. We would prank phone call some guys, different like classmates that she just had their number, and we'd be like, let's prank call this person, and like just being on three-way and just hearing her crack jokes and just prank people. That was probably
so just holding up the phone line,
pretty much.
Prank calling boys. That is off the chain.
I learned a lot from her too, because even back then, like I said, I've never really I've always kind of unofficially had social anxiety, so I never really knew how to talk on the phone unless I just really rocked with you. But I just kind of picked up how she carried conversations and how she just interacted with people. Like it just was no pressure. She was just make sure you had a good time, make sure, it was jokes, it was laughs, it was just fun.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, and 10 being, I guess, the most, I know this is probably tough to rate, but how 10 being it just really affected you a lot. How would you rate the loss of Chitika?
Losing Chitika. What was a lot? 10 or
10 is a lot.
a 10 for sure.
Is it
It
10?
affected me in a lot of different ways.
I mean, what in particular was affected? I mean, granted, love and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What?
Just the nature and how she passed, because I just didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, our relationship, our friendship has always been like fun and laughs and just a good time. Like I never really knew her to have sad days or whatever. So just to know the way that she passed, it just kind of it's like guilt there, because it's like I didn't know. I found out all this information. Like I'm like, oh, what? Like it was just a shock.
And if I'm not mistaken, she stayed in the same apartment complex.
Mm-hmm.
Was it guilt from the fact that you felt like, you could have done more, or?
Yes. Because since we moved into that apartment complex, and to find out that her building was like in front of ours, I was like, oh shoot, we can finally spend time together. And we would always talk like, hey, she would either be like, hey, I'm available this time, or you. And then I'd be like, well, something on my end didn't work out. Or then I would be like, hey, you want to hang out this day? But then something else wouldn't, just schedule conflicts, It just never worked out. And then when that happened, the day, which I don't know if this is a question of yours, but the day that she passed, ironically, I don't know if it was the day, it's a blur, but she called or texted me that day. And I missed it. And the day that I found out she passed, I was just so busy at work, and it was snowing, and so in my mind, I didn't even see the phone rung. I just kind of glanced and was like, oh, I missed a call from Chitika. I'll call her when I get off, And I didn't think nothing about it until my best friend had called. So it just was like guilt with that. Like I should have picked up the phone, because what was she trying to tell me? What was.
So would you say was work really a factor, or wasn't it an excuse?
I feel like work. It was probably both. I think that with work, and around that time, that was my first real job out of college, and I was tired. I was like, as an adult, which in hindsight, it could be an excuse. I was just tired. I could have made time for friendships or to be there for a friend, because you don't. I guess in the hindsight back then, you just assume like, I got time to kick it with my friends. I'm tired today. I'll call it tomorrow, and tomorrow turns into tomorrow and tomorrow, and you think you have all this time, and so yeah.
Do you feel as though, I mean, even in today's present time, are you still that type of way? I have time is.
Yes, and I'm gonna be honest and say I beat myself up about that, because right now I'm in a weird space where and this is kind of like a triggering point in terms of me and my friendship, just me as a person. Like, why do I do certain things that I do? Why do I answer for some people and I don't for others? Or why do I just whatever it is, just why do I do certain things the way that I do? And even down to my conversations with family, and even down specifically to my conversations with friends. I know that after I lost Chitika, I was more like, let me not miss their call. Let me actually pick up, because, you don't know what will be on the other line or what my friend might be going through. But now I'm in a weird point where I analyze so much that I'm like, I think about my friends all the time, and I still can't pick up the phone. Like, what is that? So it's like, on one hand, if my friends call, I try to pick up, try to answer, and if I don't, I usually beat myself up about that for whatever reason. But
So Shatika's passing happened prior to your mom passing, right? If you could you recall, how did your mom react to it? Was she?
that day, I want to say it was my niece's birthday. I think she passed in February, because I remember it was snowing, and we were going out to the aquarium in Opry Mills for I think my niece's birthday party, and I remember my mom just kind of hugging me, like, cause that was like she lost a daughter, and both my parents, really her, sorry, my eyes burning. My dad and my mom really kind of hugged me and were both sad because, like I said, that was like a daughter to them. They were like, darn, Topeka, like, what? Like, it was a shock, and they both went with me to her funeral, and I remember breaking down and my dad holding me, like, and he was kind of like messed up by it.
Yeah.
That was like a daughter
Like you
to
said,
him.
it was very good relationship, close relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I was so. I guess in a sense, was the hug consoling for both parties? I guess you and your parents.
Yeah. Oh, my eyes burning. I'm sorry. Yeah, it was, and I think my parents consoling me probably was more so them. We were probably consoling each other, but as parents, you want to put on that strong face for your kids. So it probably was a little bit of both.
And I know you said you attended the service. Did you feel compelled? Did you speak at it or?
I didn't speak at it. But I saw that the family. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Hold on 1 second, guys. Sorry about this. Where we left off was at, did you speak at the funeral or?
No, I didn't speak at the funeral. However, I did know when I got to the funeral, I think her grandmother kept a bunch of like our cheerleading pictures. So I saw they had a bunch of pictures of me and her and a couple of our other friends we cheered with that I hadn't seen in a long time. So they put them in the slideshow and stuff too. So that was like darn. So I don't know. It warmed my heart to see that, but no, I didn't. They didn't ask me to speak.
So, how can I put this? Before we go to any further, how did she pass? If you can give people a background.
I won't say the official. I will just say allegedly, or what I heard through a mutual friend, is that apparently she struggled with depression.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently took her life. Again, I don't know how true that is, but that's what I heard. And if that is true, that does hurt because, like I said, I think I've talked about on this podcast now, where I'm at in life, I've ran into some stuff with depression here and there. And just to know how deep and dark it can go, like, I'm like, darn, is this what she was feeling? And what if she felt like she didn't have nobody? And it's like, if I would have known, or, what other things were going on, what may have been transpiring, like, maybe I could have been there. Like, maybe I would have, like, picked up the phone every time that she called, because I knew, like, hey, she's struggling with something, But yeah, supposedly that's how she passed.
So how often how often do you think about or play in your brain a scenario of you actually being there? Not saying that you weren't, but...
I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be honest. Her passing, the guilt that I feel from that and just not being there weighs heavy on me.
Mm-hmm.
I took it really hard when she first passed. And so much so to the point, like, I kind of have, until filming this episode, I kind of put it to the back of my mind. Just, I try not to think about it. But it did affect me. She was buried near where my first job was. She was buried, where she's buried is near there. So, like, on my lunch break when it first happened, like, every lunch break, just about every lunch break, I would go and sit by her grave and just be like, I'm sorry, like, I'm sorry I didn't know, and,
So
but it did affect me, for sure.
So was, I guess, out of the 5 stages of grief, anger, depression, denial, bargaining, which one do you really feel like it's?
Anger, depression, denial. Part of it was denial.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was like, a part of me accepted it and felt that it was real, because I would text her and was like, hey, you there? Like, how we do when people pass and we just can't believe it. And I kind of accepted it because she wasn't responding back like she normally would. But then denial, because it's like, when you've never lost someone, it's like they're not, no, they were such a light. No, you can't. It's the same thing I went through with my mom. Like, it can't be that they passed. So definitely those two. I guess bargaining, because bargaining is, well, if I could have just did this, maybe I would have that. I think probably some of that. Honestly, probably every stage of grief at some point I probably went through with her.
Right.
But really, the extended stages of grief, when I say seven, I forgot the seventh one, but guilt for sure was the biggest one that I...
Okay. So would you say it haunts you? The thought sometimes haunts you.
Every now and then. When she first passed, it did heavy, and I would like sometimes, I think I talked to you about it a couple times, but then, because you lost someone shortly after that, so we kind of, but then like when your person passed, I kind of was like thinking more about you and that person, so I kind of buried it to the back of my mind and try not to think about it, but every now and then, like she will come up in my mind, or an old memory, and then I think like, I didn't even get to have a good enough relationship with her son. Like if I saw her son, I probably would know because I remember his face, but we just didn't have that relationship. And so guilt even with that, like,
So hearing you say that it was, speculated, or kind of you heard that it may have been suicide or battle depression or something like that. Hate to use those words because they're so harsh. But what's your honest thoughts on suicide? Like, do you have any honest thoughts on it, or
honest thoughts on suicide? I understand it. That's weird to say, and I never thought I would say I understand it, but I understand it. For someone to take their life means that they were really in pain, and that also makes me feel more guilty because I'm like, darn, like I could have at least been a listening ear. I didn't know. I had no idea. So with suicide, it's something I never thought she would do. But I understand. Knowing how dark depression gets.
right?
Weirdly to say that, but I understand.
I think it's not weird to say, actually, because I'm currently reading The Mastery of Self by Don Miguel. But to understand self, I mean, it takes some deep diving. And I don't think it's weird for you to say you understand suicide, because like depression is a big thing. Anxiety is a big thing. In certain situations I've been in a situation of seeing you go through it, and how it's a beast. It's a bad mother. Shut your mouth, and we as humans don't know what somebody has been through, what they've seen, what has been done to them. Like, it's a lot of things that people battle that it's a lot of let me finish. It's a lot of things that people battle that we can't even fathom the thought, right?
Yeah.
So, one thing my mom always used to say is like, you think you got it bad, but she had it worse than me growing up.
It's people that always have it worse off than you.
And that's the truth. It's people that have it worse off than you, right? So when people are battling these things, you have to give them grace and understand it. So for you to say you understand it, I do understand it. And it's okay for you to understand it, because, this is real life. And life has a lot of moving parts.
And I don't even know, depression is one thing, but anxiety is a whole nother beast. I don't know if that's something she went through. But it's like, imagine feeling like you're in constant danger and just something's not right, or like, just like this, like you don't belong in this world, because just I wish I could better explain depression and anxiety, but sometimes with depression and anxiety, not saying that I necessarily contemplate suicide, I don't, but I can see how people would be like, you know what, it's just better if I just take my life, because it gets the energy in the world and social media and
Yeah,
When we talk about things we've been through that people don't talk about, like I understand how people can be like, I'm just gonna take my life because this is too much. It's overwhelming. It's just, I don't want the pressures of the world.
So this is where it gets. I'm gonna say this phrase, and you tell me how you feel. Suicide is selfish. Suicide is selfish as fuck. How do you feel if I tell you that phrase?
You know, prior to losing her, even losing her, that was in the back of my mind. I didn't want to say that, but we hear that and we're taught that subconsciously, that you take your life, you're selfish. Think about this person and that person and that person, but it's like, the more I've come to understand depression and anxiety and just mental disorders as a whole, that a lot of us struggle with more than we're willing to admit, it's like they're not selfish. Like, some people try so hard to battle the amount of energy it takes to get up and just do life every day and have to fight the same battles mentally, and just, if you're not living the life you want to live, if you have kids, you got to be a whole adult and a whole
suicide is, listen to me, suicide is selfish. If you kill yourself, you're going to hell.
I don't think that's true. I grew up thinking that, but I don't think that's true. One, we don't have a heaven or hell to put people in to say that to people. But understanding different things better, I don't think that. I just don't think that. Now, of course, we pray. So sometimes when I pray, like, I'll still pray over my mom. I'll still pray over Chitika. I pray over my loved ones who have gone on. I pray for their soul. Like, let's say that is true. If that is, I always pray, Lord, have mercy on their souls. Please forgive them for the sins that they did on this earth. Protect their souls in the afterlife. I don't know what the afterlife holds, but protect them. But I don't think that's true. I think that a lot of things are beyond our understanding, and until we go through those things, we can't say somebody's going to hell or they're selfish for that. Because I thought it was as simple as just like, well, I'm gonna be here to listen, or I can just talk to me. Like, all you got to do is ask for help. Like, so I think it's deeper than that.
It's this whole concept of the two-way street, right? Mm-hmm. And the two-way street is in my. You know the concept of a two-way street. Mm-hmm. So the phone works both ways. Mm-hmm. Like, when someone says, oh, you can just call me, when do we stop and say, have you ever stopped and said, oh, I should have just called them? Yeah. I should have just called them. And it's okay. I think we always get wrapped up in, oh, if you going through something, you can just call me. Like,
sometimes people don't have it in them to do it. Like, that's energy that they might not have. I know, I'm not going to lie, that's another part of sometimes why it's harder for me to reach out on the phone. Sometimes it's just energy that I don't have. Like, I think about everybody, my family, friends, so much. Grandma even.
Do you feel like it's your ego? Does your ego play a part in you not being able to communicate, even if you're going through something?
To an extent.
Okay.
To an extent. And that comes from me learning more about ego. Learning about your self-ego, self-perception, and things like that. I think a part of it is.
Do you think it's your ego? And you were saying...
I think that part of it is. The more that I understand ego and I study ego and I look into what our egos are, our egos keep us from being accountable for stuff.
Right.
And I think that part of it is ego.
So, okay. If it's ego that keeps us from it, is it... I'm trying to unpack this conversation, because in the sense, if this was suicide or something like that, battling depression, on your end, for someone that's battled depression, is that ego or that conversation in your head telling you, how can I put it? You have friends and you have family and stuff, right? Who you feel like you can talk to, but does it keep you? What's that conversation? Is it keeping you away? Is it like they're going to judge me, or?
I think that part of it is, for me personally, there is a part, and I'm working on this with myself too, that has always subconsciously been, I have not put this label on myself, or no one has put this label on myself, but I felt I had to live up to it, is the strong person or the strong friend. So a lot of not reaching out when I'm going through something comes from that. Like I can't go to this. I know that I have amazing friends, and if I need them, they're there. They will darn near ride up. You're talking about people that like when I lost my mom at like 4 in the morning. They came from Clarksville. They came from wherever and was up there. They pulled up like so. I know I have, and even family. I know I have a good support system, but sometimes that ego, sometimes I just in my mind I'm like, no, I don't want them to look at me as weak, or I don't want to lean on them too heavy, or and it's just like I've gotten to a point, to that point so far, where I'm like, I got it myself. Like I can just I've learned to isolate, probably too much, but I've learned to just be by myself and handle problems. And like I got, or I'll talk to you, or we give each other,
So I'm trying to. Is it where do we turn this around? Mm-hmm. Like Chitika needed somebody to talk to, evidently, and she probably battled with the whole thing of,
the strong, silly
I'm
friend,
strong, I'm silly. Cause you said she walk in the room and it lights up, right? Mm-hmm. So she's like, I got this. What if they think I'm weak? Yeah. Where do we stop? When do we stop this? Because I feel like it hurts us more than help. Even as a black man, or man in general, to say like, yo, I'm hurting. Like, yo, I'm not feeling this good. Like, it's like, bro, come on. Like, oh, I think they're going to think I can't say that. Yeah. Where do we stop this? I think we should stop it right now by saying, it's okay, bro. Yeah. Or it's okay, sister.
I can say I talk about, which we'll talk about shadow work in some coming episodes, but I have really been heavy on like shadow work and digging deeper within myself of like, okay, now I've identified all these things and the social anxiety, the whatever, and just not the past of not answering my phone or calling friends or whatever, but it's like now I'm moving into action. Like, once we identify, action. So I have started challenging myself, like, hey, when somebody's on your mind, at least send a text. At least send a text. Baby step, and carry, not just send a text. Because I've done that. I've like, oh, okay, this person's on my mind. Let me send a text. But now I'm finding it's like carry the conversation. Right. And then baby step from there. Actually pick up the phone. Like, it's not that hard, but I think sometimes ego and we're harder on ourselves of like this image, or social anxiety. We add that to our identity of like, no, I have social anxiety. I'm not going to be able to carry the conversation. And I say that I had social anxiety, but the reality is, if you ask my friends and whoever I've been on the phone with, I carry the conversation so well, nobody would even know. But on the inside, I'm like, okay, what are we going to talk about next? What are we going to... So it's just about progress for me. Making steps and just continue to be greater.
So today in time, bringing it back full circle, do you feel like you're a bad friend? After dealing with this situation then versus now?
Honestly, I think guilt tells me I am. But if any of my friends need me, I'll be 10 toes down for them. Like, whatever they need. So I battle with that, honestly. I would love to be like, no, I'm not. But guilt is a beast. It tells you, yes, you are, because you didn't pick up the phone. Mm-hmm. Or you didn't actually... She lived across the street from you. You didn't... Even if she was busy, you didn't go over there and bang on the door and demand she spend time with you, and you could have done that. Like, you didn't take extra steps to be there for her. You were a bad friend, so...
So do you ever feel like you'll ever be able to forgive yourself?
I think eventually it takes some work, like a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. And well, yeah, eventually it'll come a time. Eventually. But right now this is the first time I'm really talking about it. Yeah. And so I haven't really processed it. I kind of felt it when she first passed. I buried it in the back of my mind for a little bit, but I never just sat and talked about it. So eventually, with time and probably writing about it, maybe there needs to be more journal entries for me, or questions I need to come up with for myself and really give detailed answers, honest answers, just personally. But yeah, over time, I think I will.
So do me a favor. Finish this sentence for me. I wish Chitika knew that.
I wish Chitika knew that I loved her and I cared about her so much and I loved her and I always considered her my best friend, even when, life just pulled us in different directions. And yeah, and I wish she knew that had I known, I would have been there, and I apologize.
Wow, that was beautiful. So let's think about this. People dealing with depression, anxiety, you deal with it yourself. People really going through it. From a person going through it, what words would you have with somebody dealing with it?
I'll be honest, in dealing with it, I have learned that a lot of it, some of it is mental, but it's deeper than just being mental. Some of it is our diet, which nobody talks about. Like, we've grown up eating processed foods and different stuff that actually affects our mental. And the older we get, like, it plays a big part in our mental health. So I want them to just take time to take care of yourself. When you feel bad, go to positive affirmations and put healthier foods in your body and just keep track of what you eat and your thoughts. What's your thoughts? If you eat a thing of fried chicken, what are your thoughts? If you spend a whole day eating salads and fruits and vegetables, no meat, what are your thoughts? Like, really weigh and assess what's going on with you and what you're actively doing. Are you being depressed and just sitting and like, I'm gonna be in my room and just cry and have a depressed spell, or are you like, no, I'm gonna beat this, like, nah, okay, even down to my routine, I'm gonna go for a walk, or I'm gonna go juice, I'm gonna do smoothies, I'm gonna, like, what are you doing, and keep track of that. Because I'm a firm believer that none of these things, even illnesses and diseases, they're not your identity. You don't have them. You don't have them at all. They're not permanent. Like, you can work on them.
Right.
And there are things out there that can make them better. So just know that if you say you have depression or anxiety, you're experiencing it right now, but you don't have that. Keep track of yourself, assess yourself, and be adamant about not wanting it. If you want it, you can have it. I don't think you want it, but if you really are like, okay, I'm sick of this, this is not a life for me, then make up in your mind that you're going to take necessary steps to get better. So
That was beautiful. So are there any telltale signs that you can say, or after this instance you kind of picked up on, as far as knowing if somebody's going through something?
I would love to say yes. If they're always wanting to be home and away from people, they don't want to come out, and some typical depression signs, and then some that look like just not wanting to leave the house. But then there are some where people like Chitika are bubbly in the life of the party. Or look at, what was it, Robin Williams? I think he committed suicide.
Yeah.
And nobody, it's like he was so bubbly and full of life. Nobody knew he was going through something. So I think, and they call it manic depression, I think. Manic depression. People who have that, like, they show you one face and then behind closed doors they're struggling and fighting. And that, I don't know. I haven't experienced it well enough to know, because I didn't even, like I said, I didn't see Chitika. I just only talked to her on the phone. And from her tone, I would have never known. I would have never known. So I can imagine, maybe if I was in front of her, I could have seen. Now that I'm older, I can look at people. When you look at people in their eyes, it's like they either look away like they're trying to hide something, or they're uncomfortable eye contact, or they break down. And I think sometimes you can tell just by simple eye contact and like a hug, or like some people genuinely all they need is a hug, and you don't know what that does to people. So I don't know. It's like a yes and a no.
I think a big thing is, I'm gonna ask this question first before I go into my little spiel and we get up out of here. as the friend trying to console somebody going through it, what are you giving them? What are you giving them now?
Um, as a friend trying to console someone going through depression, I would say give them grace and give them an ear. It's sometimes it's not always about the advice. Sometimes it's just about being there. I think that prior to knowing what depression is personally, I think, I talked about like, oh, I feel guilty because I feel like maybe I could have been there. Maybe I could have said something. I think for people that haven't experienced depression, our thought is, I got to be there. Maybe I could have said this and said that. And sometimes people don't need convincing that they don't need to take their life. Sometimes they just need somebody to sit and listen and to understand what they're going through, to feel like they're not alone and they're not crazy. So I would say if you're consoling someone that is suicidal or depressed, dealing with depression, just be there for them. That's literally your job, is to be there for that person and love that person unconditionally and pray for them. That's it. It's not to talk them out of it. You pray about that with them and over them, and let them know how much you love them and how much you do appreciate them. But you just be there for them.
Right. So, I my tidbit to give as far as being there as a friend for someone who's going through depression, suicidal thoughts, anxiety, so and so, is to ask those probing questions. Like you said, look into somebody's eyes like, no, I think we should, like, really sit with somebody. If you can go and sit with them, if they close by, no, is everything okay? And ask deeper, like, don't just give me no lollygag answer. Talk to me. Like,
sometimes that's the answer, just saying, yeah, okay. Because there's been multiple times when people have asked me, am I okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. But that's so routine. It's like, no, dig deeper.
So it's like I don't care. Even at that point, it's like, yo, I'm not judging you. I don't care what you got going on as far as put your ego to the side. Is everything okay? Like, it was a point where we got married and I know my funds was getting low, but a homeboy was like, yo, nah. He's like, you good, bro? And I'm like, nah, I'm good, bro. Don't worry about it. And he stopped me and told me, no, are you really good, bro? Like, you need anything, you let me know. Like, it comes a point where we have to be friends and family to, like, really tell a person, like, bro, it's okay. And we have to stop judging. So we have to, what is it? It's a book I read. It's about conversations. It's about kin by kin somebody. Intentional conversations.
Oh, yes.
And in this book, they state, lay it on the line, like, level the playing field. Like, no, I don't care if I'm the rich cousin or I'm the rich friend. Like, bro, what you got going on, bro? Like, it ain't that. I just love you where you at. And I think that's a lot of things too, where it plays into a lot of these folks and into a lot of people's egos and pride, is because a lot of times us as the friends, we don't love and show people that we love them where you are. I don't care if I have $1 million and you got $5. Hey, bro, it's okay, bro. I'm not finna make fun of you. I'm not finna say, man, you broke. I'm not finna not offer you to come on a trip or something like that with me. You know what I'm saying? I think we have to start meeting people where they are and stop, you know what I'm saying? Oh, well, it's a big thing where, oh, if you want to be a millionaire, you hang out with millionaires, right?
Yeah.
But like I say, it's all mindset. If you're a millionaire, you can still bring up your homies too. Now, don't.
Y'all all be millionaires.
And y'all can all be millionaires together, because it is lonely. They always say it's lonely at the top. But it doesn't have to be lonely at the top if you still consider the people at the bottom that you came at the bottom with your loved ones. But you got to meet them there. I feel like we have to meet them there.
Yeah.
So.
I also wanted to say, kind of off subject but on subject, I feel like I didn't know that maybe that's a part of the phone thing. I didn't know what it meant to be a friend until we got married, and my friend stepped up also to like help me plan the wedding and do stuff. And even down to, I love B. Simone, and she has a podcast, Know For Sure, with her best friend, and just hearing their stories of how they were there for each other in some of the darkest times, and just answering the phone when your friend, like, honestly, it's as if, because I was so to myself and just in my little bubble at home, even as a kid, I was always in my room and like never really went out and stuff. I'm learning and relearning how to be a friend too. So I think yeah. I think
So,
that's important.
real quick, I know you just spoke on your little bubble. Was you more the only person, like were you big on friends as a little kid, or was it
Yes, like at school, but
okay?
like in terms of calling the house.
Neighborhood, was it big
So
friends?
neighborhood was different because I was the baby, and I had girls on my street that I wanted to hang with, and but they were like, she's the youngest one. Like they didn't want to hang with me. I just wanted to hang with them, and so maybe that dismissive feeling, maybe I don't know, maybe that plays a part. But for other than that, I was in the house playing with my Barbie dolls and making my own little whatever
Yeah,
in my own little
like
space.
it's a lot of moving parts to this thing, and I feel like we can help more without judging people.
Yeah.
We can be there for people more, but it starts with both parties actually.
Yeah.
So to the ones going through it, it's okay to talk about it. To the ones thinking somebody's being standoffish, okay, if they're standoffish, stand in their face and see why they're standoffish.
Yeah.
It's a two-way street, and we all got to realize we got to meet somewhere in the middle, because we got to cross paths to get to the other end, just to get to work. So is there anything else you would like to leave this podcast, or any words you would like to give to the audience, to Chitika, to
Just that I wish I had the number, but if you are battling suicide, and you feel like you don't have anyone to talk to, there are resources out there, so look into those. I think there's a hotline tip and stuff like that. But just to everybody, just one thing I'm learning also is to be present. Being present, like being in the moment. Like if we're sitting here having a conversation, like no, my phone's not in my hand. I'm not looking at my hand. I'm looking at you. I'm feeling your vibe. I'm feeling and hearing your words. Like I think that we all need to be more present when we interact with people, even when we're on the phone with people. Because that will tell you we miss so many things, a lot of things about a lot of people by not being present. I think that phones and technology and social media has changed the game for a lot of stuff. So I'll say that I pray that everybody is more present with whoever you encounter that you care about.
that's real.
And also subscribe to this podcast as well.
So, moral of the story, we love you. We may have lost our podcast, but we haven't lost you. So with that being said, much love. Thank you, Mechi G, for yet another beautiful interview. And may the spirit, the soul, the legacy of Chitika live on forever and forever. Forgive yourself. I know whatever timeline it takes, forgive yourself. And the same goes for as it was for moms. You do great things to let them live on, you know. You don't stop. Like this right here is beautiful. Just telling people, you know, it's okay. Let's talk about it. Let's be good friends, and let's put this pride and ego to the side. If we dealing with something, we deal with it. We smack it in the face right then and right there. We don't let it fester. And also, a great tidbit that I have to say, 5 stars before I leave this episode, is diet. I'm a big dog. Always been a big dog, but I do understand diet and mental health. It goes together. So
Trying colonics too to clean out your colon.
yeah, I ain't gonna but
I learned about that.
yeah, but guys, yeah, whoa.
Guys too, get a colonic, clean out your system.
But nah, in all seriousness, let's real deal take that time to clean up our bodies, heal our bodies, our minds, our souls. What's up? I'm Husky Hefe, and this is Poetry in the Park. Take one. 2 two-way street. Phone ringing, not today. It's been that type of day. So much lately, it's the norm to say, maybe I should reach out. Maybe they'll do the same. You know what? I'll just stay in my lane. I know they feel the distance. This pain I'm feeling, I know it's being mimicked. My street way more dark. It's lights on yours. My streets reflect the life of a mushroom. I'm dying inside. It's time for me to expel my pores. My street ain't no better. It's a cold, cold world. Who's altering the weather? Ain't that grandma's sweater? Just a tidbit of what she left us? She tried to give you a call. Your voicemail just wouldn't let her. Full of resentment. Just express your feeling. Pick up the phone and call. You pick up the phone. It ain't that hard. I don't know what to say. How about you start with a hey? How's it going today? What if they... That's problem number one. You can't guess what they'll say. You have a choice. Choose a direction. There's always an equal but opposite. But staying stagnant is the true misdirection. Choose north. Choose south. Choose east. Choose west. But on this two-way street, remember, words unspoken, calls never made, time never spent, they never existed. So they're not granted the gift of faith. Travel down the other side of the street. Sometimes you have to pull in a driveway to ensure safety for the person you're intended to meet. Two-way street. And with that being said, we out, right?
Yeah. Thank y'all for listening and watching. Love y'all.